You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
It's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who, at Star Wars Celebration, has got more panels than the Star Destroyer. Mark, how you doing?
Stressed. Oh my God, bearing under the strain of celebration prep, and we're 30 days out. Holy hell, it's coming fast. But other than that, I am fine. How are you? How's things? How's your week in Star Wars been?
My week in Star Wars has been very busy. Obviously, same as you, celebration prep, which never stops and never slows down and never ceases. But other than that, yeah, good. I think we're sort of within the boundaries now of another season of live-action Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Gives us loads to talk about on the site, reviewing it, doing the guides, and obviously reaction chats, which we do each week. Last week's went down rather well for the first episode of The Apostate, so that was great fun to do and be back on the horse with that one. As ever, full-on, bonkers, but fun.
If it's not fun, why the hell are we doing it? So, have you had any new acquisitions into your collection?
I have got one big thing. There's a few little bits and bobs coming in. I'll tell you about two. The first one is, it's terrible. Arcade 1-Up released a few of the Star Wars Trilogy arcade machines, the smaller versions that they've released in the States, into the UK. I put a piece on Fantha Tracks, and as I put the piece on Fantha Tracks, I couldn't help but order one for myself. You have to assemble it yourself. Yeah. And if I was a member of the Avengers, I wouldn't turn up because I cannot assemble anything. So it's laying in pieces on my my collection room floor at the moment. It looks kind of simple to put together. And it's really well explained. So no slight on Arcade 1-Up and the team behind the machine at all. But Martin Keeler has got one of these as well. And he said it took him 3 hours. And I'm thinking if it took him 3 hours, it would probably take me 4 hours. And right now, I ain't got 4 hours. So I've got this very nice, which will look amazing when it's done, arcade machine in bits on my collection room floor. Which, of course, as a consequence, means I can't really get around the collection room at the moment. So I really need to grow a pair and get that built. The other thing I got was, as you know, we interviewed Jon Favreau recently on Making Tracks, and at the end of that conversation with him, who, by the way, was a lovely fellow, stood up, shook our hand, asked all of our names, couldn't have been nicer. At the end, he famously has his challenge coin. Yeah. And so at the end, I pulled out a Fantha patch and a badge with the Fantha logo, and I said, oh, it's just for you, John. This is us. This is who we are. Favreau, bless him, went out the room and came back in like 10 seconds later with 3 of those coins that he gives out. That's already up in the cabinet with the other sort of Lucasfilmy bits, pins and stuff. So thrilled to bits with that. So that was rather groovy. So yeah, so I've got a very cool coin that I was fortunate to get, and an arcade machine, and too lazy to build. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, nothing as cool as that. I do feel your pain actually, because there's nothing worse than looking at flat pack stuff and kind of going, ugh. So what have I had? I have, yes, just today, in fact, speaking of celebration, everybody knows of the running of the hoods, the wheel row hoods. Yes. Since a certain episode of Andor came out, there's a little community that has formed around the prisoners of Narkina 5 and the One Way Out run. So, and it's not necessarily accurate, it wouldn't be approved with any of the costume clubs, but it worked for all intents and purposes of running around the XL. And so that's come, and I've tried it on, and literally it arrived about an hour ago. And the thing is, I actually ordered it pretty late. I ordered it at the end of February, and I was like, I don't think this is going to arrive. And actually, the estimated delivery day was the 12th of April. And so I was just like, well, that's just cruel. I mean, if it was like a few days later, that would have been okay. But no, bizarrely, and it's not even Amazon, it was AliExpress of all things. It turned up, and I put it on, and it fits. I mean, it fits well enough, as in, like, I said to a friend on Facebook, I can't get this top off because it was a bit tight round the old round the head of all things. Yeah, there you go.
Check your Skype right now and check for the picture I've just sent you.
Yeah, you've got one as well. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the question I have, and I've been asking lots of people,
Yes.
and this is partly because I went to LFCC with the Rebel Legion. So I saw a good friend of mine, Drew, and he was wearing his for a bit, and he was actually wearing it barefoot. So I'm just wondering, are we going to go all in, and are we going to go barefoot? I'm quite up for that. You know, I might have to get like a pedicure or something before celebration. I just don't know.
Yeah,
you know.
I hear that there are plastic foot coverings you can get, but I also think that if you've got a verruca, why not share it?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, what is celebration if it's not about sharing things? You know, because everybody's got merch and got their own swag, so they can get my verrucas. However, the other thing that dawned on me: do you think that prisoners were wearing any underwear, and does that mean we need to go commando?
Oh God. Well, I'll take one for the team when it comes to potentially standing on like needles and
and broken glass,
knives, and broken glass and stuff. Yeah, but I'm not quite so sure the world's ready for full view of my
for little Mark.
I was going to say something else, but yeah, let's go with that. I'm not sure I want to spend most of the celebration in a cell somewhere. Who wants VPLs? I mean, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, the Mando Mercs, as far as I'm aware, and I have it on good authority, they will have their jail cell at the fan group area. So we could potentially, I mean, I don't know how many people we could fit into it, and it sounds like there could be quite a lot of us. But, you know, there's definitely a jail cell that we could break out of, which would be quite funny. I don't know about yours, but if you got the same one as mine, it doesn't breathe, does it?
You're right, it doesn't breathe, and it is, as you said, quite snug in the head area. Yeah. I heard almost a tearing sound. Yeah. I'm hoping it was the suit and not my ear coming off. And I tend to test the structural integrity of most clothes as it is. Yeah. So it could be interesting. Yeah. The more I think about it, and I don't want to think about it too much, but the more I think about it, I'm thinking I'm probably going to get some white underwear, because some bright spark starts debagging Narkina 5 prisoners. That could not end well.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that's a great idea.
Anyway, onto the news. We've got loads to talk about. It's celebration season, as we've mentioned. You're going to be seeing us running around the XL in wonderful white and orange jumpsuits. We've already got a great load of guests coming. We've now found out that Michelle Ang and Simon Cassinides are going to be there at the XL as well. Simon Axwoves in The Mandalorian, Michelle Omega in The Bad Batch. Good guest to add to the lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to round it all off, really. You know, you've got the voice of Omega and Axwoves, so that's, you know, a bit more Mando magic for the autograph hunting hounds and that. So, yeah, a fairly chocker autograph haul.
It seems to be. I mean, it's built up nicely. You've got something for everybody. There's people from all over the sort of the spectrum of the Star Wars galaxy. And I suppose to say this announcement of guests is specifically people who are signing. There will be other guests coming to the show. We know that Jon Favreau will be there. We know Dave Filoni will be there. Other people will be there, but not in the autograph hall. So I think they, when they talk about guests, they're specifically referring to signees or signees. But on that topic, Cantina 2, Sunday the 9th at the O2, the Indigo at the O2, they have announced and started announcing guests as well. And they've added a fantastic array of guests so far. Andy Seacombe, Michael Culver, Lewis McLeod, most recently, as we record, Garrick Hagan. Again, what a great lineup of people to be bringing to the O2 for what is a gig, but also a signing event now.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the guy said, it's a con festival, isn't it? You know, it's kind of like a convention / festival. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think it's quite nice. It's kind of like a bonus. It's almost like the proper celebration after party is at the O2, and it is #Cantina 2.
Exactly. Boonta Eve on Thursday the 6th. They also have signing guests as well. They've announced their first wave of guests so far. You've got Alan Fling from Return of the Jedi, John Coppinger, who was involved in Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi also, and Tina Simmons, who was also in Return of the Jedi. So Boonta are going big on Jedi guests. If you were in the area and not going to Celebration, but prepared to go to these other sort of satellite events, if you like, you could still fill your boots with some really great autograph guests, couldn't you?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's really nice because for us in the UK, we've said this loads of times, that, you know, we are pretty much spoiled when it comes to the talent that we get over here and sign on a regular basis. However, if you're living in deepest, darkest Belgium, you're coming all the way from Australia and America, you know, some of these talent don't make it over to the US and internationally very often. You should definitely take the time and put it on your list to kind of go to Boonta Eve, go to Cantina, see some fantastic bands and listen to some fantastic podcasts and everything else, and then meet some amazing, lovely and very generous with their time, like Star Wars actors and that, and get something signed or get a photo and that. So I think it's a win-win. In some respects, it almost just makes Celebration that much bigger.
You're absolutely right. It is. It's becoming more than just celebration. It's a bit like New York Comic Con, and there's other things happening around it. It's becoming a festival, if you like. Can't wait. It's on the doorstep right now as we speak. Also, they've announced the first panels for the main stage at Star Wars Celebration.
Woohoo.
Friday the 7th, the opening day, 11 a.m. to 12:30, so it's a 90-minute slot on the Celebration stage. Celebration returns with a must-see showcase. We'll kick off the weekend's festivities into Harbour Drive. They're going to talk about upcoming adventures, The Mandalorian, Andor, loads of other stuff. That feels like the place where they could potentially announce new stuff as well as celebrate the things that we've already got on the go.
Yep, I completely agree. We said this, I think, last time for Anaheim, the Lucasfilm showcase, you know, that's not necessarily just Star Wars. You know, we've got Indy coming out in a few months' time after Celebration. This is the panel to watch. I mean, I'd imagine this will be the one where all the big headlines get announced.
Saturday the 8th, 11 a.m. to 12 o'clock, Celebration stage once again. Ahsoka, basically. Filoni, Favreau, certain guests, hopefully Rosario Dawson, will be looking at Ahsoka. So, again, maybe a teaser, if not a trailer.
Yeah, exactly. And Rosario's signing, so you'd imagine there's a window of maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours where you probably couldn't purchase autographs because she's probably going to be on stage. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you're going to have Filoni there and Rosario Dawson is actually in the building, get her on stage. Let's find out from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what it was like to play Ahsoka. And yeah, like you said, I would imagine there's going to be photos and possibly a teaser or maybe even a clip. They might even do that horrible, nasty thing whereby they're not actually going to show anything outside of the stage, but I'm sure for those in the stage, they will see something special.
Monday, April the 10th, Celebration stage once again. Talking about the Bad Batch, got Jennifer Corbett, Athena Patillo, D. Bradley Baker, Michelle Ang are going to be there talking about that. Sunday, 4 till 5 on the Celebration stage, Walt Disney Imagineering, they're talking about Galaxy's Edge, Galactic Star Cruiser, 40 Years of Return of the Jedi, Saturday the 8th, 2 till 3, Celebration stage. That is the 40th anniversary panel for Return of the Jedi. We never got one for Empire. We did get one for A New Hope, which was enormously memorable. You get the picture. We've listed everything on Fantha Tracks. It's all there. And as I'm scrolling through the site, they are adding stuff as we speak to the Galaxy stages as well. So since we posted this to Fantha Tracks, new stuff has been announced. It's all coming onto the official Celebration, StarWarsCelebration.com website. Also, very usefully, where they stream it to other stages. So, for example, the Ahsoka panel, which is on the Celebration stage, that's going to be streamed to the Galaxy stage, the Twin Sun stage. So they are really making sure that people get a good view of it. So it really is coming together very nicely.
Hi, this is David W. Collins, voice actor for Star Wars and sound designer at Skywalker Sound. You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
We know what's coming to some of the main stages at Star Wars Celebration, and that will be added to as the days and weeks go by. But also, we have the collecting track, an absolutely essential part of Celebration. It's been a staple of the show since Denver back in 1999. Gus Lopez had basically 2 weeks to pull together the very first collecting track. And of course, it's Gus, so he did. It's coming back for Celebration Europe. Couple of really cool things are happening. One, they're bringing the medallions back, which were always awesomely cool. And two, Mark, you're doing a panel on the collecting track.
I know! And I'm actually bricking it, if I'm honest.
It's a great title. We're dressed collectors collecting through costuming and cosplay. Who came up with that title? I love it.
So the whole spiel, and as you can tell, it's the longest description out of all the other panel descriptions.
It is by quite some way, yeah.
So that was Greg Alonso. So Greg Alonso, actually, Rebel Legion member, as well as myself and my good friend Phil Parker. We have decided to do a little panel about kind of like how you can kind of collect Star Wars items through cosplay. Me and Greg, that's more like the actual costuming items. So I have a kind of a bit of a semi-focus on found parts. Like a found part is generally the item that they then use to source Greeblies. But the difference is that some people will put them onto their costumes. I have a tendency to buy them and look at it and go, it's too nice to destroy. So therefore, I kind of keep it in its original state. So there's that, and also then there's the ancillary kind of like swag and merch, so all the kind of stuff that comes along with being in a international costume club like the Rebel Legion or the 501st or Mando Mercs. So yeah, it should be fun. Hopefully, it won't necessarily clash with the main Celebration stage panel, but if it does, well, then it's me talking to Greg and Phil talking to me and Greg. It'll be fine.
We've put an article on the site updating with all the collecting track panels that are going on. We haven't got a time schedule, as you've just alluded to. We haven't got that yet. As soon as that comes out, I'll fold that into what's here already. But just to give people a flavour, Marcellotti and Gus Lopez is doing a panel on Star Wars coins and medallions. Quite fitting.
Absolutely.
Given that they have, as I say, just announced that the medallions are back and they are gorgeous. The Lego collecting panel, it's Jeremy Beckett from Holybrick Archive, Graham Hancock, the editor of Blocks magazine, and James Burns from Jedi News. James is a staple of this panel, so he's been doing it for years and years and years. They're going to look at Return of the Jedi's Lego and all of the stuff coming off the back of that. And some panel called World Dress Collectors, collecting through costuming and cosplay, but nobody cares about that. European Vintage Star Wars store displays. Matthias Rendall, Darren Simpson, good pal of ours, and Thorsten Greth are going to talk about all the store displays that you could find, not just here in the UK, but all across Europe as well. Worldwide Star Wars collecting oddities. This sounds absolutely fascinating. Joe Iglesias, Darren Thomas, and Gordy Owen. They're going to look at some of the really rare collectible stuff. And just to remind people, and it's a complete fluke, and there's literally no logical connection to the two things, but the collecting track is a thing that happens at Star Wars Celebration. But collecting tracks, you can probably see the link, is a podcast we have here on the Fantha Tracks Network. It's Richard Hutchinson and Chris Leddy. They talk about what's going on in Star Wars collecting, mostly looking back through time at stuff that's happened in the past with a very experienced eye. Check that out on Fantha Tracks Radio whilst you're checking us out.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
We've just learned that at Star Wars Celebration, the return of Star Wars Celebration Live, it means you can listen to celebrity guests and exclusive interviews. It's all on the live stream, and the hosts this time round, Anthony Carboni, Christina Ariel from the Horror Republic Show, Kristin Baver from This Week in Star Wars, and Jamie Stangroom, UK legend. It's going to be a bit special, I reckon. That's a good mix of people, isn't it?
Good mix of people, nice lot of energy there. They're a fantastic bunch. And yeah, I think now, what would Celebration be without the live stream? We're tied to various different responsibilities across the weekend. And so you look down at it and you kind of go, oh my God, there's so much stuff I want to go and see in all these panels. And obviously, we know that not all the panels are going to be streamed. However, knowing that I can come back like on the 12th or the 13th of April and I can sit down and I can start picking my way through some of these panels kind of fills me with a little bit of relief. I don't necessarily have to get too stressed about what panels are missing. Hopefully there'll be a camera floating around the fan group area at one point or another to see what's going on. So I better be in my best behaviour.
I doubt that very much, but let's hope there is, because I'm looking forward to seeing how that all comes out. We have a listener's question. It's coming from Skyhawker, a regular questioner of Fantha Tracks and Fantha Tracks Radio. His question is, hi dudes, always a good start. It has always disappointed me how the kids' toy Mando helmets, that's Boba, Django and Din Djarin, have always had an oversized T-visor. Presumably this was to avoid the kids not being able to see well and consequently falling over and breaking their arms. Having just watched the Mandalorian episode 1 of season 3, I was delighted to see the Mando kids have this oversized visor as part of their armour, making this canon. Do you think that Dave and John noticed the oversized visor in the toy, like I did, is taking credit for this, I love it, and decided to address this, or am I reading too much into all of this? And that's from Skyhawker. So, as you saw in that opening scene from The Apostate last week, the T-visor is clearly bigger, and it is exactly like the kids' version of the toy. John and Dave are fairly savvy, and so are the designers on the show. Do you think there's some logic to that? Because that actually kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. That kind of does make sense. And also, just logically thinking, they could have just repainted a kid's Hasbro helmet.
Yeah.
I don't particularly know the kids' costuming kind of line particularly well.
I'll give you a hint about it, Mark. It's smaller.
Except for the visor, which is bigger. From an in-universe perspective, that actually kind of makes sense when you think about it. Because, you know, you'd think they've been put on this helmet and they're told they can't take it off. You know, the first time you wear a helmet, the Boba Fett one, not necessarily quite so bad, but the Stormtrooper helmet, when you put that on, it's like, oh my God, there's very limited visibility. And there's even other costumes that are even worse. You could kind of maybe see that they've done that just to give the families a bit of a fighting chance. I suppose as they progress and that, the T-visors get kind of smaller. And I mean, if you kind of even look at that collection of Mandos who were there for that ceremony, they've all got slightly different designs and all slightly different whips, and there's, you know, a couple that are more like the Night Owls Bo-Katan belongs to. Interesting. But it's a good spot.
It's a very good spot. But just riffing off the back of that, when you have a youngster put on that helmet with the larger visor, what happens when they have to take the helmet off and put the next helmet on? Aren't they breaking all their vows?
Well, this is it. Logically, we saw this in Chapter 4. He takes his helmet off to eat. So I think it's more of a case of you can't take your helmet off in public in front of somebody. Because you'd imagine, when you're flying around the galaxy, you probably wouldn't wear your helmet. If you're flying by yourself, why would you? Nobody's going to see you.
But I thought about this because we talked about this on Reaction Chat, didn't we? When Grogu's in the back and he goes in the front, he sort of nestles up to Mando as he's fast asleep. And I thought maybe if Mando was in his own quarters at the back of the ship and the ship's on autopilot, travelling from one place to another, he probably would take his helmet off because, like you say, there's nobody else around to see him. But because he's in sort of a glass cockpit of an N1 fighter, when he drops out of hyperspace, you don't know who's going to be there. Somebody could see him. Yeah. It might be a stranger or it might be a friend, but somebody could see him. So my logical head says, he'd think, oh no, I'm literally sitting in the front window here. So he keeps his helmet on. That's my logic.
That's your logic. I mean, I wasn't necessarily just referring to Mando. You think about Boba and Django. Django takes his helmet off as soon as he went into the Slave One.
Do you think Mando's too honest? Do you think he shouldn't have said anything to the army?
Yeah, totally. I mean, how is she going to know that he's lying? Well, from the tone of his voice, I mean, maybe she could be that deceptive. She is pretty on it. I mean, I suppose maybe it's better to tell the truth and not get caught out in a lie. However, it's not like he even put any form of defense up. And we say this, because he took his helmet off to Grogu. It might not necessarily be Grogu that was the issue, because he's part of the clan, maybe. There might have been some kind of allowances for that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Because, let's be fair, I'm sure Mando weddings are therefore those Mando nuptials. They might need to kiss the bride. If you get married, does that mean that you still have to keep your helmet on? Or, does the order then kind of start to have some form of celibacy? Like a priest order. Well,
it used to be you'd hear the headboard knocking, but maybe with the Mandos, you'd hear the helmets banging together. So
obviously, this is a thing that John and Dave have done the right thing. They've kept the whole got to keep your helmet on fairly vague, and I'm sure there's going to be a load of exceptions. You think even like when he was injured in season 1, when he's getting repaired by IG-11, and he's kind of like, you can see my face. I suppose it'll be like anything. It will probably be whatever the story needs it to be. So let's say him and Bo-Katan or him and the Armourer get it on. They're going to have to take their helmets off, surely.
I just like the Mexican wrestler logic. The mask never comes off. It's such a part of their wrestling culture. Certain Mandalorians, not all of them, having this same sort of logic. I know we've slightly drifted away from Skyhawker's original point. There's got to be certain circumstances where it's accepted. And as you say, if you're alone, fine. Nobody's going to know. Why would you mention it? You've got to clean the helmet. It gets damaged. You need to replace something. The helmet's got to come off. So that's understandable. But there's got to be some logic to it. But by the same token, it was the Armourer that basically referred to Mando and Grogu as a clan of two, the Mudhorn clan. So Mando seeing Grogu, who by association you could see becoming kind of a Mandalorian at some point. I don't know what the constraints would be. I've seen talk online, I think you've mentioned it as well, about what's to say that they're not necessarily all human. There might be Nyctos under there, different ones. You said it last week. That's understandable to a degree, considering the size of heads and helmets that they wear and such. If a Duros had that on, if Cad Bane had a Mando helmet on, you wouldn't think anything of it. Grogu had his chainmail vest that Mando gave to him. What's to say at some juncture that he doesn't get his own helmet? And the point is you saying about us joking about how honest does Mando need to be in the face of the Armourer. Dave Filoni said that it's probably not that far down the road now until we actually hear Grogu speak. And sod's law, the first words that will come out of his mouth, he'll just point to Mando and go, he took his helmet off. So being honest is probably a good thing, isn't it?
So just doing a very quick image search, I can see all manners of images come up. However, there's, at least in the Mando Mercs, there are helmets for Twi'leks. There's got to be some form of canon or EU backstory for that. Well, I think we're going to wrap up for today, but fear not, because Making Tracks will be back very, very soon with a reaction chat for Season 3, Episode 2 of Mandalorian, which actually technically is Chapter 18. Thank you very, very much for listening, and obviously thank you very much to Mr. Hawker for sending his listener's question, which, we may have trampled all over. However, I think we did answer it there or thereabouts. If you would like to send in your own listener's question, that would be great. Mark, can you let everybody know how they can do that?
I certainly can. Thanks for listening to Making Tracks as always. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app through the App Store. Oh, of it. Anyway, you can reach us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fantatracks.com, sending the questions, and we will answer them and discuss them. And as Mark says, trample all over them. Comment, like, and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantatracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fantatracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our making tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And check out our Fantatracks Radio Friday night rotation. It's every Friday night, 7 o'clock UK time, for new episodes of The Phantom from Down Under, Planet Layer, Desert Planet Discs, Sight Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks. And every Tuesday, 7 o'clock UK time, for your weekly episode of Making Tracks. And that's me done for this episode.
Hey, well done. We got there in the end.
In the end. Took a while.
Yes, I shall not dilly-dally around and say, until next time, stay safe, take care, and may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantatracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.